Chung conducted one of history's most astonishing autopsies. On a 2,000-year-old woman, so well preserved, Peng and his colleagues could dissect her like a modern corpse. Her flesh was still soft and elastic. Her skin was the same light yellow color it had been when she was alive. She still had her hair and a wig she'd worn to the grave. When the autopsy team cut open her skull, their amazement deepened. Her brain was only half its normal size, but completely intact. Then, Professor Peng made his first incision into the chest and found all her internal organs still in place and looking nearly good as new. The team removed her stomach, ovaries, and other organs. Incredibly, there was still red blood in her veins. Decades after her modern debut, the mummy from Ma Wangdui still dazzles and puzzles the world's top forensic anthropologists, like John Verano of Tulane University.
What really sets her apart from other mummified bodies, first of all, is the flexibility of her limbs. When I first saw these limbs being moved in this kind of just absolute flexibility, it just kind of made me jump, because you just don't see that in an ancient body. And I thought, don't do that, because you're going to break that arm right off. It's something I'd never seen or thought would be possible in a body of this age.
But even before Peng Longjiang began to cut, archaeologists already knew that the lady from Ma Wangdui was no ordinary mummy. Her name was almost certainly士崴. She had died about 160 years before the birth of Christ. And she'd always been a star. Archaeologist Charles Hyam knows her well.
She was an aristocrat. She was a major member of a ruling family, and she led a life of considerable ease and luxury.
2,000 years ago, Sĩ was the wife of a powerful lord named the Marquis of Dai. Her modern home, the Hunan Provincial Museum, displays a life-size reconstruction of her. An elegant, beautiful woman stares at us. But Professor Peng's autopsy suggests a very different look.
The lady's body has shrunk quite a bit. The wrinkles on the skin tell us she was quite fat when she was alive. Many people estimate her body weight was around 150 pounds, quite fat.
The Lady of Dai's love affair with dinner seemed confirmed by the treasures found in her tomb. More than 1,000 artifacts. 2/3 of them connected with food and drink. 30 sealed bamboo baskets held everything from pears, plums, and soybeans to the bones of pigs, oxen, dogs, pheasants, and some 10 other animals.
We know precisely what she liked to eat. Some of her favorite recipes, after all, were inscribed and placed in her grave. We find the complete skeleton of a swan, for example. We find sparrow's eggs. We find sliced lotus. All these items were clearly readily available for her table.
But the tomb contained much more than enough food for the afterlife. Just because you were dead didn't mean you stopped dining in style.士崴planned to eat her eternal meals off exquisite lacquer dinnerware, the largest set of ancient Chinese lacquer ever found. Draped over her coffin was a beautiful silk banner, showing the dead士崴making the journey to heaven. A soul's pilgrimage toward an eternal banquet.
She was taking with her all her wine containers, for example. She was taking all her lacquer plates. She was taking the food she was accustomed to. She was taking her recipes and representations of servants. Servants made sure that the afterlife, once she reached paradise, was going to see a continuation of the sort of things that she'd been used to. Everything was laid out and neat and tidy and orderly, and life would indeed have been exceedingly pleasant.
For Sĩ崴, death was a dinner party that never ended. So was life. For her, on earth as it is in heaven, meant a little thing like death wouldn't spoil the fun. The Lady of Dai and her fellow aristocrats had plenty to celebrate. Life in ancient China hadn't always been so good. For centuries, China was a deadly battleground, as warring kingdoms tried again and again to conquer one another. Even the rich and powerful spent their lives fighting to stay alive. Then, in 221 BC, one of history's most remarkable men, Qin Shi Huangdi, the first emperor, united China's warring kingdoms for the first time. But when the first emperor died in 210 BC, his empire died with him. China plunged into 4 more bloody years of war, until a rebel peasant leader founded a new dynasty, the Han, an empire contemporary with Imperial Rome and equally splendid. The Han dynasty would rule a unified China for the next 400 years.
The Han dynasty brought to China peace, prosperity, wealth. People were able to, as it were, go back and revert to really enjoying themselves, to party, if you like.
The Lady of Dai would have partied more than most, dazzling her dinner guests with banquets they'd never forget.
There would have been a lot of music, there would have been a lot of incense, there would have been servants coming in and your beck and call. I think it must have been jolly good fun.
But in the Han dynasty, living the good life was only the beginning.
Your afterlife was going to see a continuation of the convivial, sophisticated, cultured, aristocratic life of the present, and therefore you had to have the body intact to enjoy it all. What's the point of going to heaven with all your wine and all your food if you haven't got a stomach to accommodate them? Immortality was an obsession.
But not every attempt at immortality succeeded. The most spectacular